From the studios in beautiful Oceanport, New Jersey, welcome to the biggest and greatest podcast ever. I'm your host, Ray K. Hey guys and girls, another version of Catching Up with Ray K. That's me. I got an exciting show, as you can tell on my voice. I am excited about this because I'm going to dedicate this show to baseball, which is the American pastime, because it was invented in America by supposedly Abner Doubleday. But there's some rumors that he may not have been really the guy that, that invented it. But we'll give him the credit, like in 1861. And it's branched out a little bit, especially in the Latin American countries. It went out to Japan, which was, I think, helped by Babe Ruth in those barnstorming years in the 20s. And then after World War II, Japan got into it. As you notice, they have a lot of great little leaguers, little league teams. And then it kind of went into the Latin American areas, and there's a bunch of Latin Americans playing now in Cuba and really all over. I don't know if it's because it's great weather all year round or what the deal is, but Latin America does produce a lot of great players, and they have for a long time. So other than that, there's not a lot of baseball around, it seems. If you go to Europe, they really don't play it there. If you go to, I guess, Africa, they don't play it there, I don't believe. Australia, not really. So baseball is really an American-type game, and it's, I guess cricket is it kind of formed off of cricket, which is a British, English game, which is confusing, but I hear people that don't understand baseball, and they just don't get that. So I guess I get it, because I still don't get cricket, but I never had anybody explain it to me over the course of like a couple hours. But the games seem to go on for days, and I just don't get it. They hit like 17 home runs, and to me, baseball is very easy, and I think I can explain it to someone watching a couple innings. I think they get it. There's a lot of little idiosyncrasies that go into baseball, and unless you know the game, there's so many things that go on in each at bat. So that takes time to understand. But the actual rules, to me, it's a very easy game. But baseball, to me, is like the first game as a kid you learn to play, because it's very easy. You just have to throw a ball, and you just have to hit the ball. So in baseball, when I was growing up, it was a little league, and it helps to be good. You have to, if you're not really inclined to be a baseball player, it's tough. It really is, and it cannot be fun if you're not really that talented in it. But as a kid, every kid seems to go out with it, and you always knew the good kids, and you knew the kids that were like we call them the two-inning players. But if you're good at baseball and you're like a top three guy on the team, it's really fun because there's nothing really like it. But you could play baseball in the playground. We did a lot of playing out in the field. It's such a summer game, which makes it cool because you get that fresh cut grass. See, I'm getting so excited just thinking about this. You get your ball, you get your glove, you put it on your bike, you ride down to the park, you get like 6 or 7 friends, you got a guy that's pitching, and you put everybody to the left, and then somehow we played the games, and it was like one of the few times in life there's other times, but you get joy, you get real joy in playing. So that all is how you grow up with it, and then you pick a team. 8 years old seems to be the magic number for liking a team. I don't know why. I guess it's the age of awareness or something, So, when I made, I immediately got into the Yankees, even earlier. It was the Yankees. My father liked the Yankees. We always had Channel 11 on, WPIX. So, it was like after it hit about 8, I just couldn't get enough of it. I was watching. That was Mickey's last year. I remember it. Then I remember Mickey Mantle Day in '69, and I remember. And from then on, it's crystal clear. I remember everything from then on, and I remember every player. And every player to me was like a god. Even Gene Michael, who hit I think average about 3 homers a year and batted about 219. I thought this guy was like unbelievable. It just shows you, how when you're a fan, you watch the team, that you grow up with them, and you seem to know them, which is another cool thing about your favorite team. You really get to internalize all these players, which is helped by the baseball cards. When you're a kid, Baseball cards are cool. You got all the stats on the back. Depends on the year. Some cards are better than others. I remember when I first started collecting, I think around 67, they were nice. Then those 68s came out with that plaid white thing around the frame on the outside with that yellow back. Oh, those things were unbelievable. They had those great front pictures of the players' faces, and you had the prize Mickey Mantle card, which was the best one, him with that batting stance. You got Willie Mays. It seemed like the good players, the great players, were hard to get. I don't know if they really made less of them in the sets. I love to find that out, but it seems like like Andy Etchebarren or those kind of players, Horace Clarke. Like you always seem to get like 15 of those guys. It was almost like you had one in every pack, but there was nothing like the feeling when you got like a superstar guy. I mean, Mickey Mantle. I mean that says it all, because that was for whatever reason. I don't know if it was his name or what, but that was like the king card to get. But if you had like a Hank Aaron, I mean, all those kind of guys, you get a Mays, you get like a Roberto Clemente. I mean, it was exciting, getting those. And you look at the back of the card and you're like, wow, 563 homers from Mays in 68. Well, look at Aaron, 542. Man only has 536. Eddie Matthews, 504. So the cards, it was easy to kind of see how good the players were because you just flip the card back, and when you see those big statistics, I mean, you really, these guys were like gods, So the cards were cool. The 69s were good. The 70s, I collected up to about 74. When I hit high school, I don't know. It just kind of like, it seemed like it was they were too new or something. In 74, like a 65 with that pennant was like unbelievable. I mean, to get a 65 card was amazing. So cards loomed large in childhood. I counted them once. I had about 12,000 of them, probably, 5 full shoe boxes tight, So I was into them, and I never got a full set though. I always missed a couple because I used to, like, on the rainy days, I used to lay them on the floor and see how many I would get. I always missed a couple, So you had the baseball cards as a kid. You had your team. If you were a Yankee fan, you loved the Yanks, but you didn't like the Mets. If you're a Met fan, it's the opposite. You didn't like the Yankees. I can honestly say I don't know if I even watched a full inning of any Met game when I was a kid. You put it on for a few seconds and that was it. Sometimes I'd put it on to kind of watch like the other team, like Pete Rose or Johnny Bench, like when they were up. But other than that, I mean, it was like all Yankees. I mean, you get to know the announcers. The announcers become like your family. We had like 3 great ones in my mind. It was Bill White, Phil Rizzuto, and Frank Messer. I mean, those guys, they kind of did it in a way that you felt like you knew them. And the way they joked. They joked on TV. That was like as much fun as the actual game. As listening to those guys. So that was a cool part of it. So you got all the games on TV. Especially in the summertime when you don't have school. And that's like big time pennant potential fever. You even know, being a Yankee fan, in the early 70s, I mean, that was like the worst time ever to be a Yankee fan, from the late 60s to the early 70s to mid 70s. But I was a diehard, and every time they were on TV, I mean, I just couldn't ever see watching anything else. Channel 11, I used to get so mad, like when I was like 9 or 10, if they made an out or if they lost like a game, like in the last inning, and my parents didn't even want to be near me. I used to like pout, and I used to run outside and shoot baskets if they were losing. I just couldn't I couldn't stand it. When I hit about 12, I got over that stage. But it was like for a couple years. I mean, I just couldn't take them losing, because they teased me a few times, and they were like close. They were like a couple games out, and they made a few runs actually. People don't realize that, but Horace Clarke era, I know in 70 they had about 90 something wins, but a couple other years, 73 I think it was, with the Tigers, they were in it, but they couldn't get over the top. Then in 76, you just knew when they had that new Yankee Stadium, they got Willie Randolph, and they just had all these players. You could just see it gelling, and just it just was clicking on all cylinders. So you just knew something special was going to happen. And then when they beat the Royals, in that game, with Chambliss hits that home run in the right center, and it made it over. I saw a replay. It made it over by about They made it over by a good 6-7 feet. I mean, I heard inches, but I saw a replay from a certain angle, and when Hal McRae jumped and you thought he had it because of the angle of the way the ball went over the fence. Now, from a different angle, it was a good 6 feet over. But watching it live, you didn't know. So that was my most exciting moment ever in sports, is watching that Chambliss home run, and just the way the crowd goes on the field. And remember, he didn't hit home plate, and I was wondering if they were going to call him out. That's how naive I was, thinking that, well, is it really over, but it was, and the Yankees went on to lose to the actually lose to the Cincinnati Reds in 4 straight. I mean, they played them kind of tough. I don't know the exact scores, but 4-2, 6-4. 3-1. I think the last game they kind of lost decisively 7-2. I remember that because Bench hit 2 home runs. Munson had that great World Series year. Then they got Reggie, and then they won the 2 straight. You just knew this was the team, even though you had the Bronx Zoo, and there was a lot of controversy throughout the season. 78, they were 14 back in June. Especially right after that fight with Martin and Bill and Reggie, and that was sort of the low point. And they came back, and they had an unbelievable September. They were killing the Red Sox, the Boston Massacre thing in September, and they had that one game playoff. I was in college. I took off like 2 school classes because I mean, what am I going to do? Not watch this after going through all these years? So I missed those 2 school classes, and Yanks won with the Bucky Dent homer, and then Yastrzemski pops out for the last out to Nuttles, and onward to the next championship, which we won pretty handily 4-2 against the Dodgers. So I mean, that all was great because that was my whole childhood wrapped up. From age 8 to about 18, and then the next year is when Munson died in that tragical plane crash, which I just still can't believe because. He was my favorite player right from day one, actually. I liked Mercer because every Yankee liked Mercer. I think every player in the league every fan seemed to like Mercer. He's one of those guys you couldn't not like. And then Munson came in his own, and I became a Munson fan. So that was very sad when he died because that was another like part of your childhood like dying in a way because I kind of grew up with him, and he died in that plane crash, and I was like in shock for a while. I heard they still haven't gotten over that, by talking to some guys that actually work for the Yankees. I mean, I think it took them about 10 years to get over that whole thing. I mean, it just wasn't the same team. So when Munson died, the 80s for me kind of slid by. I became more of a basketball fan with Larry Bird and all the Celtics and Danny Ainge and McHale and Parrish and DJ and all those guys. Bill Walton that one year in '86. I became a huge Celtic fan. Well, I was always a Celtic fan, but I became even more so because the Yanks weren't. They weren't doing good in the '80s. I mean, I still liked them, but I think when Munson died, it just wasn't still the same for me. So I kind of leaned toward the Celtics, and I watched the Yanks a little bit, but it just wasn't the same. Maybe it was my age too, because you're building a career, you're trying to figure things out. You just don't have the time to withstand a 67 and 94 season. A losing season with your team. So I got through the 80s. Then in the 90s, I think that's part of your life. You kind of settle down, you kind of figure stuff out, and then you kind of can get back into these things. And I did, with the advent of Jeter in 96. Of course, 95, they made some good runs. Then they had that great team from 96 to probably 2003, where they won those four out of 5 championships. They were in the World Series. They lost to the Diamondbacks that one year, which was rough. After Mariano gave up that broken bat hit to win it, but they were unbelievable, especially '98. That was such a fun team with all those players. No one great, but everybody just playing solid. I hear baseball isn't really a chemistry team. I was having a little argument with a Facebook friend earlier, and I don't know. I get it because I know it's mostly individual, and you just do good as you could. I mean, sometimes you got to move the guy over, and there's things you do that are teammate smart, but all in all, it's not as much of a team game, of course, as basketball. But I still think chemistry comes into play. I don't know why. It just seems like when you get that great team and you get that superstar that's out of the game, then some guy comes in, or you get a couple players that are kind of those scrappy type guys and the team's doing great, then the superstar guy comes back and then those scrappy guys leave, and then something seems to always be missing. They might have won like 15 out of 18, then these new guys come back, and then it gets a little bit sluggish, and I can never believe that chemistry doesn't come into play in baseball. So I'm thinking that one through, but I mean, it is an individual sport. So, but anyway, but then the great thing about baseball too is that when you get older, you could play softball, which was what I did. I played up in different leagues, and then when I hit over 40, I went into the over 40 league. And that was really fun. I'm still in the league, and we have so much fun. I learned one thing: winning makes it fun. We had a situation a few years ago where we had a lot of new guys, and we were 0-14. And I'm talking, we were getting blown out. Like we couldn't make the 10 run rule. We couldn't make it past the fourth inning, and it wasn't fun. We were trying to say to ourselves it was, because we were just here to have fun. But then we picked up a couple of new guys the next year, and then we were like 9-7, much funner. We won a championship, which was really fun. So winning, you realize makes it fun. It's really not fun to lose, and it's hard to stay interested in stuff when if you're losing. No matter how good you play, it all comes down to I mean, it is a team game. I mean, it's not an individual game like tennis or track and field. So there's my argument for that guy. I'm gonna have to get back to him later and say, you know what, it is a team game because it's a team. It's not an individual like the individual sports, which is boxing and tennis and those kind of things. And there's probably a lot more. So, but that's what makes baseball great. They got the history. You could go back. You got all those legends. You got Babe Ruth. You could compare the statistics throughout the decades. You get the arguments of who was better, Mantle or Mays, which I believe they were about even for about 6 years when Mantle was in that prime. From when he was like 20, 23, 24 to like 30. You look at those years Mantle had from 55 to 61. Boy, I mean they were crazy. But of course, Mickey didn't take care of his body. Willie did, and Willie continued, having great years after 61, 62, and Mickey slowly, faded down. So Mays, hands down, was the better player overall. But for 6 years, Mickey was up in there, Mickey was up in there, and Mickey did win the World Series rings, which I say you got to give the guy some credit. He was a leader of the team. He wins the World Series rings. Doesn't matter in baseball. I mean, basketball, Russell won the rings. Chamberlain didn't, of course, it's a team game. But can you credit the player? Do they get any credit for winning the rings? I mean, I guess they would have to get credit because if it's not a team game, which my friend argued, then it's an individual game. So you got to give it to the individual. Like a Mantle had great years to be responsible for winning the World Series, So I guess that makes the player more powerful if it's not a team game. I don't know. I'm just winging it here because I like winging it. But that sounds like a pretty good argument, So that's my scoop on baseball. I'm trying to think what else I could say about it other than it's the closest sport I could think of that's like life. You go around the bases like you do in life. You go to first base, you go to second base, and the whole point is getting home. Like the bases are like the world, and you got all the fielders out in the world. That's like the world. And to get a hit, I mean, you got to avoid those players, and it's not easy because when you look out there from home plate, it looks like it's like almost like how do I get a hit? You got to get it in the gap, or you got to get a nice ground ball through the hole, and it's not easy. It's you fail 7 out of 10 times, and you're a great superstar. So baseball. I'm trying to think where I'm going with this, but it's not an easy game, and it's like life. That's right. Life isn't easy. So, and you appreciate things because in life you fail to succeed because you got to take chances, and the same thing in baseball. And then luck comes into play because you get a bloop hit on a broken bat, or you could hit a line drive to the wall in left center, and the guy makes a diving catch, and that's an out. So you're 0-1 in the game, but the guy with the bloop hit is 1 for 1 with an RBI, and you look at the box score, and you're like, wow, that guy had a great game, and that guy went 0 for 4, but he lines out 4 times to the outfield and gets robbed by a line drive down the third base line. So, and the other guy could get 3, broken bat singles in a Baltimore chopper in the infield and beats it out. So that's part of what makes baseball great is the non-superstar could be a hero. Most of the other sports like basketball, you're going to give it to Jordan at the end of the game or LeBron James. Baseball, whoever comes up at that time, you can't manipulate the lineup. And if Bucky Dent comes up and he's the 8 hitter, you could pinch hit for him, but you need his field, so you keep him in and he gets the home run. So baseball, you do seem to get the unsung heroes a lot, so that's another cool thing about life, it's like unpredictable, so, and then you're coming home, and home is, that's the place you want to come. There's no place like home, and that's where you get your run, And the other thing is when you score a run, it's your body scoring by hitting home plate with your foot or your hand or your body. And there's no ball scoring, like in football, you got to get the ball over the end zone. Basketball has got to go through the hoop. I'm talking the big sports here. You're in hockey, you got to hit the puck through the net. But baseball, you gotta run it through. It's not like the ball coming in. The ball actually is the enemy that's going to be getting you out. So the ball is like, what's the analogy for the ball? I don't know if you want to call that Big Brother or that's, the ball is the danger for you. When you're on those base paths, or if that's like the guy that's going to rip you off, or the ball is like the bad guy if you're the runner, so that's the interesting way for me to look at it, because I'm just kind of, like I said, I'm talking off the cuff. So it does resemble, especially when you look out to the field, and every baseball field is different as far as the dimensions. Football and basketball and hockey is the same, wherever you go, it's the same dimension. In baseball, it's different. The fields used to be a lot deeper back in the in the earlier days. Yankee Stadium was 461, and then it went to 463. I always wonder how they added those 2 feet in there. The rest of them were the same, 457, kind of right to the left center of that. Then it was 433. Then it juts down to like 301 at left field and 296 at right field line, and which is a misconception that it's so easy to hit homers, but you got to hit it right down that line. You hit it 20 feet to the left of the right field line, it juts back to 344, so I don't know how many home runs hit the foul pole, but I don't think a lot, so I think that was a misconception about how easy it is to hit that porch, because that's just right down that line. Then it starts jutting back, pretty good. So that was a cool thing about baseball. You had those big dimensions. Polo Grounds was like 485, I heard 500 at one point. Detroit was, 440. Then they started bringing them in the 60s. Maybe, I don't know if they wanted more runs or what. And then it was like 410 was like the number in center. Yankee, when they had the new Yankee Stadium, went to 430 at first. So that was kind of cool. It was still a little bit deep. But, then of course, then they bring that down to 408 now. And everything kind of got smaller. But the dimensions are still, they're still different. It's not a uniform thing, which is cool. There's no time. There's no time in baseball. A game could literally go on forever. Of course, you'd have to stop it around 3 a.m, whatever the curfew is. But if you're tied, you could keep going, like literally, forever. So, it never goes forever. It goes at most like 20, 22 innings. So that's a cool thing about baseball is there's no time, so it really isn't over. In other sports, it is over. If you're down by 4 touchdowns with 1 minute and 2 seconds left and you have no timeouts left, that game is over. In basketball, if you're down by 20 points and there's 1 minute and 22 seconds left, unless you're going to hit 7 straight threes in a minute, and steal the ball 6 times, it's over. Baseball, the equivalent, I guess, you could be down 11-0 going into the 9th. Is it over? It most likely is over, but, there are comebacks. Teams have come back from that much down with 2 outs even, So, baseball, that's a cool thing about it is the game is never over. As Yogi Berra says, and that's one of the things about baseball, a lot of legends, Half of the stuff, as he says, half of the things I said I didn't say, which is a yogiism in itself. But, it's a legend thing, baseball. How many things are true? I don't know. But, it's it's a cool thing is there's never there's no clock, so, and everyone roots for extra innings when you go to the game. And when you go to the game, it's cool because you could be laid back, you're eating pizza, you're eating a hot dog. I always have my traditional hot dog with my son when we go, peanuts, maybe that one beer you drink. It's so laid back, and it's so cool because when you know the game, you know all the idiosyncrasies, I'll use that word again, on what's going on. A guy gets a hit, okay, how many outs? 2 outs. Is he going to try to steal second? Should he steal on an 0-2 pitch? Because if the guy strikes out, at least he comes up. At least you take a shot with the guy in scoring position. There's so many things on each bat, and each at bat, that it's just fun. That each at bat you could kind of intellectualize it, and as you're eating your pizza or hot dog, it's one of the great sports in person. Whereas on TV, it's great and it's on TV, but there's nothing like baseball in person. It's just the way the ball sounds, the way the field looks when it opens up into the green when you walk through that. It used to be the tunnel. Now you come in from the outs, more of the, I guess, the inside of the stadium out. I don't even know if there's any more tunnels anymore, but you just kind of come out into the field. And, it just looks so cool. It's a diamond, which kind of is like the world. It's not square, so it kind of looks cool. It's just an experience. Everyone should. If you want to get a little Americana, go to a baseball game. Football is okay. I don't know. I think it's better on TV because you got all the different close-up angles and replays. And when you're in football, you actually watch the scoreboard a lot, and you don't even watch the game. Baseball, they don't have the live stuff on baseball. You just watch the game, which is cool. They don't put it on the scoreboard. Football, and that scoreboard up there, they got the game, which I really don't like because I like watching it. Basketball is pretty good in person if you're close. You got to be close in basketball. If you're deep, it doesn't. I don't think it's that great. I think TV's greater unless you're like in the first couple rows. Then it's good. But baseball, you could be deep, and you get to still the whole breadth of the field, and it's even good sometimes to be deep. Further back in the stands. So it's an experience. That's another great thing is the in person, watching the game in person. So, and then you got the whole thing after the summer. Now we look forward to October. My Yankees are in it. We won over 100 games. I think we're up to 102. And we're in a close fight with the Astros for best record. It's important to get it because once you get the best record, you have home field advantage. And I think there is a definite home field advantage in baseball. And you can just see by their one-loss records, usually most of these teams, the home record is better. Playoffs, maybe it doesn't matter as much, but I think it has to matter when you have the whole fan base cheering for you. You're the comforts of home, so it's important to get it. So Yankees still got to play hard. There's about 5 games left, and it's important to get that home field. So they got something to play for. You don't want to get any players injured, but that's if they make it to the championship, and that's it. And if Houston makes it to the championship, because there's once these playoffs start, it's a whole new season. You cannot really even go by the regular season because you've seen wild card teams that make it through. So as great as the Yankees were, they can't rest. They got to keep playing hard. I'm kind of wishing they could save some of these wins for the playoffs, because they're blowing people out now. It's actually not even fun. It's like 8-0. One thing about baseball too is when you're at a game in person and it's like 12-1, your team's winning, you actually kind of root for the other team to score some to make it interesting, because 12-1 in the 4th inning, even if your team's ahead, isn't too fun, So it's not like a good close baseball game going into the 9th inning because then you have all that strategy that goes in and all that, So it's going to be a great postseason, and when your team's in it, it makes it even greater because now you really got something to root for. It makes you feel like a kid when you root for a team, and I hope I don't lose that. I want to be 92 years old and like still be in it. Wear my Yankees shirt. And so it's going to be exciting to watch. So that's the scoop with baseball. I think I covered a lot, and everyone that follows me knows I like posting those old photos of baseball. I like the baseball cards. I like the whole legend of it. How much is true? Did Babe Ruth really point to center field? Who knows, But anyway, I kind of want to believe it, I'm believing all these legends, the Gas House Gang, or did Mickey really hit that facade in right field, there's no film of any of this stuff. You just kind of have to believe it, I remember when Willie Mays caught that ball in center field, we always thought he threw the guy out at home, which was crazy because that was 485 feet in center when he caught it. but he did make a great throw into the infield. He kept the guy from second to stay in on third, because back then you could score from second on the sacrifice fly. So all these legends, it's great to have, and it's great that we have them all, because you could always have some fun with it. So anyway, baseball, I'm going to go with the Yankees all the way. Next week we'll be into the playoffs when I come on. So I hope you enjoyed this version. I wanted to do a little fun, like an overall fun version on the whole show, and that's what this was on Catching Up with Ray. So I want everybody to enjoy your days. I want you to enjoy the weekend, and I really like talking about all this stuff. So just keep sharing this stuff. I want to keep this going because I really have a lot of fun with it. So anyway, until next time, Catching Up with Ray. We'll catch you then.